The night the starving servant girl dared step into the Alpha King's hall, every noblewoman carried gold, jewels, and promises of power. She carried only a small piece of bread. The court laughed. But when the Alpha King saw what she placed in his hand, his wolf bowed. And that single moment changed the fate of the entire kingdom forever. The girl who brought bread to a king. Winter arrived earlier than anyone expected that year. Even before the rivers froze, the wolves had begun howling differently. Not louder. Not more often. But deeper. Older. Like something buried beneath the kingdom's bones had begun to stir again. The palace astrologers whispered that the moon had shifted its path. The priests said the ancestors were restless. The generals said war was coming. But the servants said nothing at all. Servants only survived by staying quiet. And Elira had survived 18 winters by learning exactly that. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. Stay alive. That morning began like every other morning in the lower servant quarters. Cold stone floors. Thin blankets. No fire. No bread. No hope of either. Elira woke before sunrise because hunger refused to let her sleep longer. Her stomach ached the way it had for weeks now. Winter always took food first from the servants. Then from the farmers. Then from the outer villages. Only the nobles remained untouched. And the Alpha King most of all. Or so everyone believed. She sat up slowly on her narrow wooden cot and listened. No footsteps. No kitchen bells. No morning assignments yet. That meant she still had time. Time to decide whether she would do something foolish. Or something dangerous. Or something that might change her life forever. From beneath her pillow, she pulled the cloth bundle. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside rested the last piece of bread she owned. Hard. Dry. Barely bigger than her palm. It should have been saved. It should have lasted another day. Maybe two. But she already knew she wasn't going to eat it. Not today. Because last night she had seen something she wasn't meant to see. Something servants were never meant to notice. Something no one else in the palace had noticed at all. The Alpha King had not eaten during the evening feast. Not once. Not even when trays of roasted meat passed directly beside him. Not even when the royal council encouraged him politely. Not even when tradition required him to take the first bite before anyone else could begin. He had simply waved the servants away. Quietly. Calmly. Without explanation. And everyone pretended it meant nothing. But Elira had seen the truth. Kings did not refuse food unless something inside them was breaking. And something inside him was. She didn't know why she knew that. She just did. The choosing ceremony would happen tonight. Every noble daughter in the kingdom would gather. Each would bring gifts. Each would compete for his favor. Each would try to become Luna. It wasn't truly a marriage ceremony. It was a political battlefield dressed like tradition. And servants were forbidden to enter it. Which meant what she was planning to do could cost her everything. Her position. Her safety. Her life. Possibly all three. Still. She wrapped the bread carefully again. Because once she decided something mattered, Elira never turned back. The palace courtyard shimmered beneath pale winter sunlight. Snow rested along the edges of the stone walkways but melted wherever guards stood watch. Werewolves carried warmth differently than humans. Even the air seemed to respect their presence. Elira crossed the courtyard slowly, head lowered the way servants were trained to walk. Invisible. Silent. Forgettable. That was how she survived most days. But today, her hands trembled slightly as she held the cloth bundle tighter. Servants weren't allowed inside the throne hall during royal selection ceremonies. Everyone knew that. Which meant she had only one chance. If she entered unnoticed early enough, she might disappear into the shadows before anyone questioned her presence. Inside the palace, the atmosphere had already changed. Candles lined every corridor. Moonstones glowed along the ceilings. Royal banners hung freshly polished. Tonight mattered. Not just politically, Not just symbolically. Something else moved beneath the surface of the castle. Something older. Something watching. Something waiting. Elira felt it the moment she crossed the inner corridor. Her skin prickled. Her pulse slowed strangely. Her breath deepened without her permission. It was the same feeling she sometimes experienced during full moons. Only stronger. Much stronger. She didn't understand why. So she ignored it. Servants survived by ignoring things they couldn't explain. The throne hall doors opened. And the world inside changed completely. Light spilled across marble floors like liquid silver. Moonfire chandeliers hovered overhead without chains. Ancient wolf banners draped the walls like silent guardians. And at the far end of the chamber sat the Alpha King. He looked exactly like the legends described him. Tall. Still. Impossible to ignore. His silver eyes reflected moonlight even in shadow. His presence filled the entire chamber without movement. Without effort. Without sound. Power didn't surround him. Power obeyed him. But what no legend ever mentioned was how tired he looked. Not weak. Not old. Not defeated. Just tired in a way warriors looked after surviving too many winters. Too many betrayals. Too many expectations. Too many lonely victories. The noble daughters stood in a shining line before him. Gold dresses. Silver crowns. Jeweled hairpins. Perfumed skin. Every one of them perfect. Every one of them prepared. Every one of them ready to become queen. And none of them noticed the servant girl standing near the final pillar. Except one guard. You. His voice cracked like breaking ice. The entire hall turned instantly. Elira. Her stomach dropped. Recognition was the one thing she hadn't planned for. You are not permitted here. The words echoed across the chamber like accusation. I brought something, she whispered. Laughter spread quickly through the noble line. Sharp laughter. Cold laughter. The kind that reminded servants exactly where they belonged. The guard stepped closer. Servants do not bring gifts to kings. I know. So leave. Before she could move, the Alpha King spoke. Let her stay. Silence swallowed the hall. Complete. Immediate. Absolute. Even the chandeliers seemed to stop flickering. Every noblewoman turned toward him. Every council member leaned forward. Every guard froze where they stood. Because the Alpha King had spoken for her. A servant. An invisible girl. Someone who did not exist in royal ceremonies. Step forward, he said. His voice wasn't loud. But it reached her like destiny calling her name. Her legs moved before fear could stop them. Step. 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 Each footstep echoed louder than thunder inside her chest. She reached the throne. Knelt slowly. Unwrapped the cloth bundle carefully. And placed the small piece of bread in his hand. The court erupted into laughter again. But something else happened too. Something no one else noticed. Except him. Except his wolf. The moment the bread touched his palm, his wolf rose. Not angrily. Not defensively. But knowingly. Recognizing something ancient. Something impossible. Something it had been searching for without understanding why. He leaned forward slightly. What is your name? Elira. Why did you bring me this? She hesitated. Then answered honestly. Because you looked hungry. No one breathed. No one moved. No one understood what had just happened. Except him. Because no one had ever looked at him that way before. Not as a king. Not as power. Not as territory. Not as a crown. But as a man. And his wolf bowed. Something ancient shifted inside the throne hall. Something older than royal law. Older than tradition. Older than the kingdom itself. The moonlight above the broken ceiling brightened slightly. As if the sky itself had been waiting for this moment. The Alpha King closed his hand slowly around the bread. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Not for the court. Not for politics. Not for tradition. But for her. And somewhere deep inside him, His wolf whispered only one word. Mine. The scent the king could not ignore. The throne hall did not recover quickly. Laughter faded first. Then whispers followed. Then something heavier settled over the chamber. Fear. Not loud fear. Not obvious fear. But the quiet kind nobles felt when power moved in a direction they didn't control. Because the Alpha King was still holding the bread. And he had not dismissed the servant girl. Lady Marys stepped forward again carefully. My king, she said with controlled grace, perhaps the ceremony should continue. Her smile was perfect. Her voice was calm. Her eyes were not. She was watching Elira like a threat that should not exist. The Alpha King did not answer immediately. His attention remained on the girl kneeling before him. Elira still had her head lowered. Still waiting. Still expecting punishment. Because servants who interrupted royal ceremonies were never rewarded. They disappeared. Quietly. Permanently. Everyone in the hall knew that. Including her. Stand. His voice was gentle. That alone shocked half the court. Elira hesitated. Slowly rose. Still not looking at him. Still expecting the guard's hand on her shoulder at any moment. Still expecting the punishment she believed she deserved. What is your position in the palace? I clean the east corridors, my king. Murmurs spread again. East corridors meant outer servant rotation. Lowest rank. Lowest trust. Lowest visibility. Which made what had just happened even stranger. And you brought me your last bread. She blinked. Looked up slightly. How did you know it was my last? The court froze again. Servants did not question kings. Not even gently. Not even accidentally. But the Alpha King only watched her. Because his wolf already knew the answer. I could smell the hunger, he said quietly. The hall shifted uneasily. Werewolves understood scent truth better than spoken truth. And scent did not lie. If the Alpha King said he smelled hunger, then he smelled hunger. You may return to your duties, he said finally. Elira bowed immediately. Relief rushed through her chest so fast it almost hurt. She turned to leave. But his wolf reacted again. Strong. Sudden. Immediate. Wrong. Something was wrong. Wait. She stopped. Turned slowly. Yes, my king. He should have dismissed her. He should have returned to the ceremony. He should have continued the selection. That was what kings did. That was what tradition demanded. That was what the council expected. Instead, he asked the strangest question he had ever asked anyone in that hall. Have we met before? The chamber went silent again. Elira's expression changed instantly. Not fear. Not confusion. Something else. Something closer to memory trying to surface. No, my king. But her voice wasn't certain. His wolf growled softly inside him. Not anger. Recognition. The royal council noticed. And that was when the danger truly began. High Counselor Varent stepped forward immediately. Tall. Sharp-eyed. Old enough to remember the last war. Old enough to recognize prophecy when it started moving again. My king, Varent said carefully, the choosing ceremony must continue. His tone remained respectful. But his posture carried warning. Not suggestion. Warning. The Alpha King leaned back slowly. Still watching Elira. Still feeling something impossible inside his chest. Something ancient. Something alive. Something that should not exist between a king and a servant girl. Yes, he said finally. The ceremony continues. But his eyes never left her as she walked away. And neither did the council's. Elira didn't breathe properly again until she reached the servant corridor. Her hands were shaking now. Not from fear. From something she couldn't explain. Something she had felt the moment she stood near him. Something warm. Something familiar. Something dangerous. She pressed her palm against the stone wall beside her. Trying to steady herself. Trying to calm her heartbeat. Trying to understand why the Alpha King had looked at her the way he had. Servants were not supposed to be seen by kings. Servants were not supposed to be remembered by kings. Servants were not supposed to matter to kings. So why did it feel like something had changed? Behind her, boots approached quickly. Heavy boots. Guard boots. Royal guard boots. Elira. She turned instantly. 2 palace guards stood behind her. Their expressions were neutral. Too neutral. The council requests your presence. Her stomach dropped. Council requests were never good. Not for servants. Never for servants. I did something wrong. No. Which meant yes. They escorted her through corridors she had never walked before. Upper corridors. Inner corridors. Council corridors. Places servants only cleaned when escorted. Places servants never entered alone. The council chamber doors opened slowly. Inside, 5 council members waited, including Varent, including the high priestess, including the general of the Northern Guard. This was not normal. This was not small. This was not safe. Elira, Varent said calmly. Step forward. She obeyed immediately. Servants always obeyed immediately. What did you give the Alpha King? Bread. Why? Because he looked hungry. Silence followed. Long silence. Uncomfortable silence. Dangerous silence. The high priestess leaned forward slightly. And what did you feel when you stood before him? Elira hesitated. That question confused her. I don't understand. What did you feel? She swallowed. Tiredness. The council members exchanged glances instantly. Explain. He looked tired, she said softly. And lonely. The high priestess inhaled sharply. Varent's jaw tightened. The general shifted his weight uneasily. Because no servant should have been able to sense that. Not unless. Varent spoke again carefully. Elira, where were you 18 years ago during the winter famine? Her heart skipped. I was a child. Where? In the outer forest villages. The room went completely silent. Even the guards behind her stopped breathing normally. Varent stood slowly. Did you ever meet a wounded traveler in those forests? Her chest tightened suddenly. Something inside her memory shifted. Something buried. Something forgotten. Something important. Her voice faded. Because suddenly, she remembered silver eyes in the snow. Far away. Inside the throne hall. The Alpha King dropped the bread. Because his wolf had remembered too. Something had changed. Something ancient had awakened. And the kingdom was no longer safe for either of them. The girl the council feared. The council chamber remained silent long after Elira stopped speaking. Not because she had said something wrong, but because she had said something impossible. I remember snow, she whispered slowly. Her voice sounded far away even to herself. I remember a man in the forest. No one moved. No one interrupted. Even the guards behind her held their breath. He was bleeding, she continued. He could barely walk. Varent's fingers tightened against the council table. The high priestess leaned forward slightly. And what did you do? Elira blinked. Because the memory wasn't clear. It wasn't sharp. It wasn't whole. It felt like something wrapped in fog. I gave him bread. The general stood instantly. The chair scraped loudly against stone. Varent didn't look surprised. The high priestess closed her eyes slowly. Because they all understood what that meant. 18 years ago. During the winter famine. The Alpha King had nearly died outside the kingdom border after an ambush by rogue wolves. Only 3 people knew the truth of that night. Varent, the high priestess, and the Alpha King himself. No one else had ever been told. Because if enemies learned their king had once fallen that close to death, war would have followed immediately. Yet here stood a servant girl, describing the exact night, the exact moment, the exact act that saved him. That is not possible, the general said quietly, but his voice carried no confidence, only worry. Varent stepped closer to Elira. His silver-ringed fingers rested on the council table as he studied her face carefully. You are certain this memory is yours? Yes. How old were you? I don't know. You don't know? I was very small. The high priestess stood now. Slowly. Carefully. Like someone approaching a sacred object she wasn't sure she should touch. Elira, she said softly. Show me your hands. Confused. Elira obeyed. She held them out. Palms upward. The high priestess froze. So did Varent. So did the general. Because faint. Very faint. Almost invisible. A silver crescent-shaped mark rested along Elira's wrist. The mark of the Moonbound. No one spoke. No one breathed. Because the Moonbound bloodline had vanished centuries ago. Or at least, everyone believed it had. Varent's voice dropped to a whisper. This changes everything. The general turned sharply toward the chamber guards. No one leaves this room. His tone carried command now. Not suggestion. Command. Elira's heartbeat quickened. Did I do something wrong? No, the high priestess said immediately. But her voice carried fear now. Real fear. You did something dangerous. Inside the throne hall, the choosing ceremony continued. But the Alpha King wasn't listening anymore. Lady Merys spoke again. My king, my house offers 2 battalions of Northern Cavalry. He didn't hear the rest. Because his wolf was pacing. Restless. Agitated. Alert. Something inside him refused to stay still. He stood suddenly. The hall froze. My king. Varent's assistant asked from across the chamber. I will return shortly. Kings did not leave choosing ceremonies midway. Tradition did not allow it. Protocol did not allow it. History did not allow it. Yet he walked out anyway. The moment he stepped into the corridor, his wolf turned toward one direction immediately. The council chamber. He followed instinct. Not politics. Not logic. Instinct. Inside the council chamber, the high priestess circled Elira slowly, studying her, watching her, listening to something only she could hear. When did this mark appear? She asked. I don't know. You must. I never noticed it before today. The general exchanged a glance with Varent. That is impossible. Not impossible, the high priestess corrected quietly. Hidden. Varent inhaled slowly. The Moonbound line cannot be hidden. Yes, she replied calmly. It can. When? When it is protecting itself. The chamber doors opened suddenly. Everyone turned. The Alpha King stood there. Silent. Watching. Dangerous. Elira. His voice carried something new now. Recognition. Memory. Certainty. She turned toward him. Something inside her chest responded instantly. Warm. Bright. Alive. He stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully. Like approaching something sacred. Show me your wrist. She obeyed. Again. Without hesitation. Without fear. The moment he saw the crescent mark, his wolf surged forward. Not gently. Not cautiously. Powerfully. Instinctively. Like something long lost had finally returned home. She is moonbound, the high priestess said quietly. Yes, he answered. Silence filled the chamber. Heavy. Ancient. Meaningful. Because moonbound wolves were not ordinary wolves. They were chosen by the moon itself. They were protectors. Balance keepers. And sometimes, lunars. The general stepped forward. My king, if the neighboring kingdoms learn this. They won't, the Alpha said. Varent spoke next. We must move her immediately. No. The refusal came instantly. Without hesitation. Without discussion. Without permission. The Alpha King stepped closer to Elira. Close enough now to smell her clearly. Close enough now to confirm what his wolf already knew. It was the same scent. The same winter night scent. The same memory scent. The same survival scent. You saved my life, he said quietly. Elira blinked. No. Yes. I only gave you bread. You saved my life. The chamber fell silent again. Because kings did not speak gratitude like that. Not publicly. Not formally. Not to servants. The high priestess stepped forward urgently. My king. If she truly carries moonbound blood, I know what she carries. And if the prophecy awakens, it already has. No one spoke after that, because everyone in the chamber understood exactly what he meant. Outside, in the palace shadows, someone else had heard everything. A noble messenger slipped silently away from the council corridor. Fast. Quiet. Urgent. Carrying one message only. The moonbound girl had been found, and she would not survive the night. The palace did not sleep that night. It pretended to. Candles were dimmed. Corridors emptied. Doors closed. Guards rotated as usual. Servants returned to their quarters. Nobles retired behind velvet curtains and guarded fireplaces. Everything looked calm. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe. But it wasn't. Because somewhere in the upper corridors, orders had already been given. And once orders like those were spoken, they could not be taken back. Inside the council chamber, tension still filled the air like approaching thunder. The Alpha King stood beside Elira. Not behind her. Not across from her. Beside her. That alone changed everything. The High Priestess spoke carefully. My king. Moonbound wolves are not simply rare. I know. They are hunted. I know. They are claimed. I know. They are killed. His jaw tightened slightly. They will not kill her. Varent stepped forward. No one is suggesting harm, my king. The Alpha King looked at him. Varent did not finish his sentence. Because everyone in the chamber understood the truth. Someone already had suggested harm. Someone already had planned harm. Someone already had begun moving against her. We cannot keep her in the servant quarters, the general said. No, the Alpha agreed. She stays in the East Tower. The High Priestess blinked in surprise. The Lunar Tower? Yes. Silence followed. The Lunar Tower had not been used in 18 years. Not since the last Moonbound disappeared. Not since the prophecy went quiet. Not since the kingdom stopped believing destiny still chose rulers. Elira spoke softly. I don't belong there. The Alpha looked at her. Yes, he said. You do. Outside the chamber. The messenger who had escaped earlier reached the outer courtyard. He did not slow down. Did not hesitate. Did not look back. Because the message he carried could not wait. The moonbound girl has been found. The words reached the wrong ears exactly as planned. And the wrong ears responded exactly as expected. Before dawn, the shadowed noblewoman whispered. Remove her. The assassins moved immediately. The East Tower stood apart from the rest of the palace. Older. Stronger. Built before the kingdom itself expanded outward. Built during a time when lunar wolves still walked beside kings. Its walls held moonstone foundations. Its windows faced the forest. Its corridors carried old magic. Magic that had not awakened in years. Until tonight. Elira felt it the moment she entered. Warmth. Soft light. Recognition. Like stepping into a place she had forgotten she once knew. This room, she whispered. The Alpha watched her carefully. Yes. It feels familiar. It should. He did not explain further. Not yet. Because he was still listening. Still sensing. Still waiting. His wolf had not relaxed once since leaving the council chamber. Which meant danger was close. Very close. You will remain here tonight, he told her. I have duties. No. I clean the corridors in the morning. No. I am only a servant. No. She looked up at him. Confused. Quiet. Unsure. Then what am I? His answer came slowly. Carefully. Truthfully. Mine to protect. Neither of them understood the full meaning of those words yet. But the moon did. And the tower did. And the wolves sleeping beneath the mountain certainly did. Outside the tower, 3 shadows crossed the courtyard wall. Silent, fast, trained, deadly. Royal assassins did not wear armor. They wore silence. Inside the tower corridor, the Alpha stopped walking. His wolf rose instantly. Alert. Warning. Ready. Stay behind me. Elira froze. What is it? Someone is here. The candles flickered suddenly. Then went out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. Complete. Instant. Dangerous. The first assassin moved from above, dropping silently from the tower archway. Blade already descending. Already aimed. Already meant to kill. The Alpha moved faster. Too fast for human sight. Too fast for servant fear. Too fast for hesitation. His hand caught the assassin's wrist mid-strike. Bone snapped instantly. Silence broke. 2 more shadows moved from the corridor walls. Twin blades flashing. Twin strikes aimed directly past him. Toward her. Elira. Something inside her changed. Not slowly. Not gently. Not carefully. Instantly. The crescent mark on her wrist burned. Light burst across her skin. Silver. Bright. Alive. The tower walls answered her. Moonstone veins lit along the corridor floor. Ancient runes awakened beneath their feet. The entire tower inhaled like a sleeping creature waking at last. The assassins stopped. Not because they chose to. Because something stopped them. Light spread from her wrist across the floor. Across the walls. Across the ceiling. Across the Alpha himself. His wolf surged forward in response. Not resisting the magic. Recognizing it. Answering it. Claiming it. Elira, he whispered. But she could not hear him anymore. Because the tower was speaking now. And it had chosen her voice to speak through. Leave, she said. The command was quiet. Soft. Gentle. Impossible to ignore. The assassins dropped their weapons. Not by choice. By force. By instinct. By ancient law older than their orders. Older than their loyalty. Older than their fear. Because moonbound voices did not request obedience. They created it. The light faded slowly. The runes dimmed again. The tower returned to silence. Elira collapsed. The Alpha caught her before she touched the ground. His arms wrapped around her instantly. Protectively. Instinctively. Without thought. Outside the tower. Guards arrived too late. Always too late. Because destiny moved faster than soldiers. Inside the corridor. The assassins remained frozen. Alive. Unharmed. Unable to move. Unable to speak. Unable to disobey the last command she had given. The High Priestess arrived minutes later. Then Varent. Then the General. All of them stopped when they saw the corridor. The glowing marks still fading. The assassins still kneeling. The Alpha still holding her. It has begun, the High Priestess whispered. Varent nodded slowly. Yes. The General looked toward the tower walls. Then toward the Alpha King. Then toward the unconscious girl in his arms. The prophecy has awakened. The Alpha looked down at her. His voice was quieter than the moonlight now filling the corridor. Then the kingdom has its Luna. But somewhere deeper inside the palace. The noblewoman who had ordered the assassination attempt was already preparing her next move. Because if the moonbound girl could not be killed quietly, she would have to be destroyed publicly. The girl who saved him before he was king. Dawn did not arrive gently that morning. It arrived with whispers. With footsteps. With rumors moving faster than sunlight through palace corridors. Servants spoke in corners. Guards spoke in low voices beside stairwells. Messengers ran between towers carrying sealed instructions. And every noble family inside the castle already knew one thing. The moonbound girl had awakened the East Tower. And she had done it in front of the Alpha King. Inside the tower chamber, Elira woke slowly. Her head rested against something warm. Something steady. Something alive. She opened her eyes carefully. The Alpha King was sitting beside her bed. Still awake. Still watching. Still there. You didn't leave, she whispered. No. You should be resting. I already did. She frowned slightly. That was not rest. For me it was. Morning light slipped through the tall tower windows. But something else filled the room too. Something older than sunlight. The tower itself was awake now. The walls glowed faintly silver. The air carried quiet warmth. Moonbound towers only awakened once they recognized their lunar. Elira noticed the change immediately. The tower feels different. Yes. Why? Because it knows you. She sat up slowly. I don't understand what is happening to me. He answered honestly. Neither do I. Before she could respond, a knock came at the chamber door. Not loud. Not aggressive. Formal. Careful. Council knock. Enter, the Alpha said. Varent stepped inside first. Behind him came the High Priestess. Behind her came the General. And behind all three, 2 royal historians. That alone meant something important was about to happen. Varent spoke first. My king, we need confirmation. You have it. No. He looked toward Elira. We need memory confirmation. Elira's chest tightened again. The forest knight, the High Priestess said gently. The wounded traveler. The bread. The snow. The historians stepped forward carrying something wrapped in silk. Carefully. Respectfully. Almost reverently. Varent unwrapped the cloth. Inside rested an old leather wrist guard. Cracked with age. Cut deeply across one side. Still marked with dried silver thread stitching. Elira's breath stopped. I remember that. The Alpha's eyes sharpened instantly. You are certain? Yes. You saw this before? Yes. Where? In the forest. The historians exchanged looks. The general folded his arms slowly. Varent spoke quietly now. This was worn by the crown prince the night he disappeared during the northern ambush. Elira blinked. Crown prince. The Alpha watched her carefully. Yes. That traveler you helped. Her voice softened. Was you? Silence filled the tower chamber. Heavy. Deep. Unavoidable. Yes. She stared at him. But you were alone. I was separated from my guards. You were freezing. Yes. You couldn't stand. No. You almost died. Yes. Her hands trembled slightly. I thought you were just a traveler. I was. No. He smiled faintly. I was a boy trying not to die. The High Priestess stepped closer. Elira, tell us everything you remember. She closed her eyes. And this time, the memory came back clearly. Snow. Endless snow. A small forest shelter made from fallen branches. A wounded boy leaning against a tree. Silver eyes dim with exhaustion. Blood frozen along his sleeve. You asked me for directions, she whispered. The Alpha nodded slowly. Yes. I didn't know where the road was. I didn't need the road. You needed warmth. Yes. Varent watched silently now. Because the smallest details mattered. Ancient stories were built from small details. Prophesies too. You tried to stand, Elira continued. But you fell again. Yes. I gave you bread. Yes. You said I should keep it. Yes. But I didn't. Her eyes opened again. And this time they looked directly into his. I told you kings shouldn't be hungry. The Alpha stopped breathing for a moment. Because he remembered that sentence. Exactly. Word for word. He had carried it with him for 18 years. Without knowing why, the High Priestess whispered quietly. The moon marked her that night. Varent nodded. Yes. The general looked confused. What does that mean? The High Priestess answered slowly. It means she didn't save the Alpha King last night. She looked at Elira. She saved him before destiny chose him. The historians stepped forward again, opening a second bundle. Inside lay an old royal record scroll. Sealed. Protected. untouched for nearly 2 decades. Varent broke the seal carefully, and read aloud. Winter famine year. Crown Prince survived northern ambush. Unknown forest child provided food and direction assistance before rescue arrival. He lowered the scroll. Unknown forest child. He looked directly at Elira. Until today. The chamber remained silent. Because everyone present understood the meaning now. This was not coincidence. This was not chance. This was not kindness alone. This was destiny repeating itself. The Alpha stood slowly. Moved closer to her. Not as a king now. As something else. Something older than kings. You saved me twice, he said quietly. Elira shook her head gently. I only gave you bread. His wolf responded instantly. No. You gave me life. Before he could speak again, the tower doors opened suddenly. Too fast. Too loudly. Too urgently. A messenger rushed inside. Breathing hard. Eyes wide. Fear visible. My king. What happened? The noble houses have gathered. Varent frowned. For what purpose? They are demanding audience. The general's expression darkened. Already? The messenger swallowed. They say the moonbound girl must be presented publicly. The room changed instantly. Air shifted. Tension rose. Danger returned. The high priestess spoke quietly. This is not curiosity. No, Varent agreed. This is pressure. The Alpha stepped forward immediately. No one sees her without my permission. The messenger hesitated. My king, they are already inside the lower hall. Silence followed again. Because that meant something serious. Something dangerous. Something planned. The noble houses were not requesting audience. They were forcing one. Elira looked toward him. What do they want from me? His answer came without hesitation. Control. Outside the tower. Voices were already rising inside the lower court hall. Nobles rarely agreed on anything. Except one thing. Power must never belong to someone they could not control. And a moonbound Luna born among servants. Could never be controlled. Varent stepped closer to the Alpha. If we delay, they will assume weakness. The general nodded. If we present her unprotected, they will challenge legitimacy. The high priestess added quietly. If we hide her, they will accuse treason against tradition. The Alpha looked at Elira. Then toward the tower windows. Then toward the rising morning sky. It is time, he said. Elira's heartbeat quickened. Time for what? His answer changed everything. Time they learn who you really are. Because today, the kingdom would discover the truth. Not about prophecy. Not about moonbound blood. Not about destiny. But about the servant girl who fed a starving prince. And why an Alpha king never forgot her. The lower court hall had never been this full before. Not even during war declarations. Not even during coronations. Not even during treaty signings with rival kingdoms. Because today, the noble houses were not gathering to celebrate. They were gathering to decide who would control the future of the throne. The banners of 12 ruling houses lined the walls. Each crest watching like silent judges. Each lord standing beside his heir. Each noblewoman dressed as though the choosing ceremony had never ended. Because in their minds, it hadn't. They still believed the Alpha King would choose one of them. A political alliance. A strategic marriage. A predictable queen. Someone they understood. Someone they controlled. And definitely not a servant girl. Voices filled the chamber before the Alpha arrived. She cannot be Luna. She has no lineage record. She has no territory. She has no house. She has no dowry. She has no power. But they were wrong about one thing. She did have power. They just hadn't seen it yet. The chamber doors opened. Silence fell immediately. The Alpha King entered first. Silver eyes steady. Presence unmistakable. Authority absolute. Behind him walked Elira. Not dressed in servant grey anymore. Not hidden. Not invisible. The East Tower had chosen her clothing itself. Moon-woven silk. Soft silver threads. Ancient symbols resting along the sleeves. Not royal clothing. Older than royal clothing. Moonbound clothing. The hall reacted instantly. Gasps spread through the nobles. Whispers moved faster than breath. Because they recognized those markings. Even if they pretended not to believe them. She cannot wear that. That is lunar silk. That belongs to the chosen. That belongs to prophecy. Varent stepped forward beside the throne platform. The moonbound girl has been presented. His voice carried across the hall clearly. The court may speak. Lady Marys stepped forward immediately. Of course she did. She had always planned to be first. My king, she said calmly. We respect tradition. He said nothing. We respect prophecy. Still nothing. But lunar selection must follow law. Another lord stepped forward. She has no noble blood record. Another voice followed. She has no territory claim. Another. She cannot secure alliances. Another. She cannot strengthen borders. Then came the sentence they all believed mattered most. She cannot protect the throne. Silence followed again. Because everyone expected the Alpha King to answer that claim. Instead, Elira spoke. Quietly. Calmly. Without fear. I already did. The hall froze. She looked around the chamber slowly. Not as a servant now. Not as someone asking permission to exist. But as someone remembering something important. I protected the throne 18 years ago, she said. When I fed a starving prince in the snow. The words moved through the chamber like thunder. Because they were simple. And undeniable. Varent stepped forward again. The historians have confirmed the record. He raised the ancient scroll. The unknown forest child who saved the crown prince, stands before you. Shock spread across the noble lines. Not loud shock. Not dramatic shock. But the dangerous kind. The kind that changes plans. The kind that ruins expectations. Lady Marys tried again. That was coincidence. The Alpha King finally spoke. No. The single word echoed across stone like judgment. He stepped forward slowly. Closer to Elira. Closer to destiny. Closer to truth. Every house here brought me something, he said. Gold. Silence. Territory. Still silence. Armies. The chamber listened now. Carefully. But before any of you knew my name. He turned toward her. She brought me bread. No one spoke. No one interrupted. Because kings did not speak like that unless they meant every word. She fed me when I was not a king. He took another step closer. She helped me when I was not strong. Another step. She protected me when I had nothing to offer her in return. He stopped beside her. Close enough now that his wolf stood completely still. Completely certain. Completely ready. And she did it again. His hand reached for hers. Slowly. Publicly. Deliberately. Gasps spread across the chamber. Because everyone knew what that meant. Elira of the Moonbound line, he said. His voice carried not only across the court, but across the kingdom itself. Across history. Across prophecy. Across destiny. I choose you. The crescent mark on her wrist ignited instantly. Silver light spreading across the hall. Across the throne. Across the banners. Across the nobles themselves. The moon answered. Even though it was daylight. Even though it should have been impossible. Even though no one alive had ever seen such a thing before. Moonlight poured through the ceiling skylight. Directly onto them. Directly onto their joined hands. Directly onto the lunar silk she wore. The high priestess stepped forward slowly. Her voice trembling slightly for the first time in years. The bond accepts. The general knelt. First. Without hesitation. Without instruction. Without doubt. Varent followed. Then the historians. Then the guards. One by one. The court knelt. Lady Mary's remained standing longest. But even she understood when resistance ended. Slowly, she bowed her head. Because destiny had chosen. And destiny could not be negotiated. The Alpha turned toward Elira again. Not as ruler now. Not as protector. Not as survivor. But as mate. My Luna, he said quietly. Her voice answered just as softly. My king. And somewhere deep beneath the palace, the ancient wolves sleeping beneath the mountain howled. Not in warning. Not in fear. But in recognition. Because the moonbound Luna had returned. Because the king had remembered the girl with bread. Because the throne was no longer alone. And this time, the kingdom would never forget her name. And so, on the day every noble house came offering wealth and power, the Alpha King chose the girl who once offered him bread. Not because she was the strongest. Not because she was the richest. Not because she was born to rule. But because long before he became king, she chose him when he was nothing at all. Some bonds are not written by crowns. Some destinies are not decided by councils. And some queens are chosen not by tradition, but by the moon itself. Elira did not come to the palace to become Luna. She came with a simple act of kindness. And kindness changed a kingdom forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video thumbs up sign. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful Alpha King and Luna Destiny stories. Full moon symbol wolf face. And tell me in the comments, would you have given the bread if you knew he was the king? Your answer might surprise even you. And stay with me. Because the next story is about a rejected Omega girl who discovered her wolf was never weak, only waiting.